Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Let's do it.
All right, so today we're tackling something I know a lot of you are really interested in, and honestly, me too. Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Definitely. There's so much hype, so much noise, but we're going deeper.
Way past just the how to buy stuff, right?
Exactly. We found this really thought-provoking article that gets into the philosophy behind Bitcoin, how it was designed.
The big ideas behind it.
Yeah, things like transparency, privacy, even morality. It touches on it all. Pretty fascinating stuff.
You start to see Bitcoin less as just a currency and more like a whole system.
Absolutely. So this deep dive, we're using this article as our guide to explore those deeper aspects of Bitcoin. Ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the article kicks off by highlighting this radical transparency that Bitcoin is built on. The blockchain, every transaction is public, right? Anyone can see it, verify it.
It's like this public ledger,
Yeah,
completely open.
which is pretty revolutionary when you think about it. No one can manipulate the system. No need to trust some central authority.
Right, because with traditional financial systems, there's always that element of having to trust someone else.
Exactly. But then that got me thinking, isn't there a downside to all that transparency? What about privacy? If all my transactions are public, doesn't that make me vulnerable?
Yeah, that's the trade-off, right? It's a double-edged sword. Transparency builds trust, but it can also raise concerns about surveillance. Because even though my Bitcoin address isn't directly linked to me, someone with enough resources could potentially trace my activity.
Like follow the money trail, basically.
Right. And the article acknowledges this. It emphasizes the need for better privacy solutions within Bitcoin.
Okay, so what are some of the solutions being explored?
Well, the article specifically mentions the Lightning Network. It's this layer that sits on top of the main Bitcoin blockchain. Transactions happen off-chain, so they're way harder to track.
So it's kind of like a more private side road running parallel to the main highway.
That's a good analogy. And there are other things in the works, too, like something called Fediment that's supposed to boost privacy without making Bitcoin more complicated to use.
Which is important, because if it's too complex, it'll never really catch on with the average
I-
person, right?
Absolutely. But the privacy stuff is just one piece of the puzzle. The article really dives into this idea of Bitcoin as a counter movement to centralized control. And it talks about how central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, could pose a real threat to financial freedom.
CBDCs, so like digital versions of the dollar, the euro, things like that.
Exactly. But issued and controlled by central banks. And that's where the problem lies, right? Because if governments have total control over digital money, they could track everything we buy, everything we spend.
And this article, it kind of paints a slightly dystopian picture, right? Where governments could use that power to control people's behavior, even restrict what they're allowed to buy.
Yeah, it gets into some pretty heavy stuff. But it makes the case that Bitcoin, because it's decentralized, offers a way to push back against that kind of control. It gives individuals true financial sovereignty. You control your own money. No one can freeze your account. No one can censor your transactions.
Which, in today's world, that feels, I don't know, almost radical, right?
Yeah, it really challenges the status quo.
But it's not just about the tech, is it? The article talks about the values, the philosophy at the heart of Bitcoin.
Absolutely. It breaks down these core principles: integrity, freedom, and responsibility.
Okay, break those down for me, starting with integrity.
So integrity, because the system itself is designed to ensure transactions are honest and can't be tampered with. Then you've got freedom, because individuals have the power to transact freely without interference from any central authority. And finally, responsibility, because with Bitcoin, you're ultimately responsible for your own financial security.
You hold your own keys, so to speak.
Exactly. And the article even compares Bitcoin's potential for evolving privacy to how the internet itself transitioned from HTTP to HTTPS.
So just like secure web browsing became the standard, we could see similarly robust privacy solutions become the norm for Bitcoin.
It's a really interesting parallel. And it makes you wonder, what other advancements are on the horizon? What will Bitcoin look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
It's exciting to think about, isn't it?
Definitely.
So after this deep dive, it's clear to me that Bitcoin, it's so much more than just a digital currency.
It's a whole philosophy.
Yeah, it's about transparency, individual empowerment, really rethinking the way financial systems could work. It makes you wonder, if this decentralized model gains traction, what could that mean? Not just for the future of finance, but for society as a whole.
Big questions for sure.
Definitely gives you something to think about. All right, thanks for joining me for another deep dive. We'll be back soon with more fascinating explorations.
Until next time.